So I recently picked up this Hungerford dresser off of Facebook Marketplace. So follow along and let's see how this transformation works out. So I've already washed this down and with crud cutter and soapy water to get all the crud cutter residue off. So I'm just kind of looking to see what all I've got to do. It's really in pretty good shape. The thing right there. The bottom looks pretty decent, although I'm going to probably change this bottom out. But you know, some superficial stuff here that I'm hoping. I don't even think I even have to fill anything. I think the stain is off of it. So it's in pretty good shape. Like I said, I'm going to turn it over on its back here in a minute, and we're going to take this bottom off. And I'm going to throw all this hardware away. It's just cheap stuff. Yeah. So definitely needs a hardware upgrade. So that's where we're at. So I'm going to turn on this back. I'm going to see about taking the bottom off of this and do patching I need, and then we'll start the scuff sand. Okay, so this base, these look like they just screw on, and I'm going to replace all of that with a new base. Well, it's going to modernize it a little bit, and so right now I'm getting ready. It's held on by flathead screws, not Phillips. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, so I'm getting ready to pull those off. Because these were flathead screws, I couldn't get my drill with my flathead bit to engage. It just kept spinning. I just couldn't get it to bite. So I'm having to do this all by hand. So let's go ahead and take all these pieces off on each end. There's one in the middle, and then we will move on. So since I'm going to be painting this dresser, I'm just going to scuff sand all the drawers. Well, I'm going to scuff sand the entire dresser. So scuff sand it down. I've already cleaned it and wiped it down. Cleaned it with a crud cutter. Wiped it down with warm water, get all the residue off. I'm going to sand it, scuff sand it first to expose what blemishes I'm really going to have to fix versus maybe I could sand down, and then we'll see what we have to patch, and then we'll get them patched, and then we'll get her primed, and then we'll get her painted. So here we go. This is the first drawer. Pretty standard stuff. I'm using SurfPrep on these with a 180 to 220 sanding pad. That's why it gets the curves nice and easy, you know, because it's spongy. So let's see what we got. So like I said, I'm using my SurfPrep here. This is going to be really nice to sand down the curved edges, which, you know, an oil roll doesn't do very well. It tends to, you know, flatten or round them out. So we'll get this all sanded down. This is one of several drawers I've got to do, and then we'll see what kind of fillings I have to do on anything that does not sand out. You know, you don't have to use a SurfPrep for this. You can always do it by hand, but a sander like this sure does make it a lot easier. Well, a couple places I couldn't sand out, so I'm going to have to slightly patch. One right there, one right there. That one sanded out. All along here, sanded out. So not bad, not bad. So I'm just going to go ahead and sand them, then I'm going to come back and clean them all up. Okay, so I've got all the drawers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. So I'm simply wiping the drawers down with a damp microfiber cloth. Once I have all the dust off, then I will go back and start filling in with DAP wood filler any imperfections that need to be filled.
and then we will be ready to prime after all that dries. So while the wood filler on the drawers is drying, I'm going to go ahead and scuff sand the dresser itself. And then once I have it scuff sanded, I'm using again 180 to 220. And once I have this scuff sanded, then I will go back and clean all the dust off again with a damp microfiber cloth. Then look around to see what kind of imperfections are showing up and to see what I need to patch. Then we'll get out the DAP wood filler and we'll patch everything, and then we'll have to wait till that dries before we can go to the next step.
If you're refinishing a dresser, you know, the drawers, the inside of the drawers are just as important as the out. For instance, you notice here how they stain, when they first stained this, it oversprayed, you know, this area on the top. And the inside of the drawers, like especially here in the front, just notice it's just all discolored. So, show what this looks like before, and I'll show what this all looks like after. So you just always pay special attention to your drawers, make them smooth, and get any stains off, any overspray of previous finishes. And then that way, you know, it's really going to look nice. If you don't pay attention to the drawers, it just really ruins the entire piece, in my opinion. So I'm going to sand this drawer down. I've already done 2 or 3 of them, but I thought I would show you what I'm doing and why.
So using my SurfPrep again with a 180 to 220 sanding pad, I'm going to get all the, I guess you can call it overspray from the previous finish off, exposed with beautiful dovetails. Then we'll sand the sides down. So the inside of the drawer front needs some work because there's overspray in there. And so get all of this smoothed up, and we'll do this for every single drawer, and they really will be beautiful when they're all done. It'll be nice and smooth. In the end, we'll put some wood wax on there, and they're just going to be gorgeous.
Okay, well, I've got all the drawers sanded, except for one that I had to do an extra repair on. But I noticed that when I was sanding off the DAP wood filler, that I was noticing bleed through the wood filler. I was not anticipating that, so I'm going to do a little quick test, because I was planning on using a latex-based primer on this, not an oil-based or a shellac-based. So I'm going to do a little test on this drawer and see if I get bleed through before I use this primer on everything. So I'm going to paint a little bit. I'm probably not even going to paint the whole drawer. Well, I might. I don't know. But I want to see if I get bleed through, because if I do, then I'm going to have to go to an oil-based or shellac-based primer. Okay. It's good enough. Let's see if that bleeds through. Hopefully it won't. And if it doesn't, then I'll be able to spray these, and I'll be good to go. But we'll see what happens here.
Well, spoiler alert, it did bleed through. So now I have to use an oil-based or shellac-based primer. Right now I'm lining my tray to reduce the cleanup. I've decided to use a shellac-based primer. One, because it dries quicker than the oil-based, and 2, it goes on actually very, very smooth. It seems to level out pretty good. So, but this means that I need to brush and roll all the drawers, and brush and roll the entire dresser, because I just don't put this stuff into my sprayer. I suppose it would clean up okay, but I just don't want to. I reserve my sprayer just for latex only. But we'll get this on here. It'll dry in a few hours, and then we'll be ready to go on.
Okay, so I'm going to measure. I'm going to build a new base out of its red oak. And I've already done rough measurements, so now I'm going to make sure my measurements are okay. I originally had 48 inches, so 4 feet across. 49. Oh, I think 48. Actually, I think 48 and a half would be better. So, we're going to go with 48 and a half. Now, so that's the total width across. Now what I have to do though, is since we're going to have the legs in the way, I've got to subtract the width of the legs. These supposed to be 2 by 2s, but you know they never are. So this is 1.5, 1.5. So I need to take 3 inches off of this. So it's really 45 and a half width. And I originally said 17 and a half inches deep. So let's see what that comes out to be. Okay, I'm going to stick with 17 and a half, and I've got to then subtract 1.5, right? 1.5. 17 and a half minus 1.5, oh, 2 feet. So again, 3 inches. So 17 and a half. So it's 14 and a half deep. Okay, so I'm going to use my miter saw to cut this. I've got blocks. You probably can't see them. Let's see here. Way down here. I got T-tracks and a measuring tape right here that I suppose you can't see very well, but it makes it really convenient. I built this towards the end of last year, anticipating all this when I retired. And so I got it set at 45 and a half, and it indeed is. Even though I built this and measured and measured and measured, I always still measure. So the laser says 45 and a half, and I believe that's what I needed. Let me double check. 45 and a half. So we're going to cut this, and then we'll cut the 2 sides. Now I need the 2 sides. That's 14 and a half inches deep. It should be right about there. So we'll check that. 14 and a half. This should be 14 and a half. And it is. Okay. Even if it's off a little bit, at least the 2 sides will be the same length. Okay, so I got the 2 sides. Now I need to decide how long I want the legs. Okay, so I'm going to cut the feet. I want the 2 front feet to have a 60-degree angle. My saw only goes to 45, so I made these jigs. These are 45 degrees. So to make a 60-degree cut, 60 minus 45 is 15. So I'm going to set my miter at 15. And then when I go to cut this, it will be a 60-degree angle. So I'm going to get this clamped on here so it doesn't move. So, and I'm not going to take the time to film that because it might take me a minute. So when I get ready to cut, I'll be right back. Okay, so if I got this clamped on here as best I can, so now I'm getting ready to make the angle and cut. I think I need to move this back just a little bit. Hold on. Okay, so I've got this clamped in, so it'll hold it. I want the cut to be halfway, so it's 3/4 of an inch on the bottom of this leg. So I've got this against the jig, and it looks good. So I'm gonna cut it off. All right. So there's my first 60-degree angle. Now, so I have something to work with, I'm simply going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the other 60-degree angle over here. And that way, I need to measure this off though. That way I have something to work with before I actually cut the legs. So 3/4 of an inch. Looks like 3/4 of an inch. I need to find a better way than this clamping mechanism, because it just takes so long for me to get something on here. Whoops, I didn't put it on the side cut the mark. There we go. See how this is lining up. Oh, just about perfect. Maybe not. Yeah, pretty good. Okay. Second cut. All right. So I got my 60-degree angles. So I'm going to remove this jig now. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the feet off at 5 inches. Now this I've actually got to kind of measure, because well, this says so I can't go up to can't go up there. So need to measure it off. I need to find a better way than this clamping mechanism, because it just takes so long for me to get something on here. Whoops, I didn't put it on the side cut the mark. There we go. See how this is lining up. Oh, just about perfect. Maybe not. Yeah, pretty good. Okay. Second cut. All right. So I got my 60-degree angles. So I'm going to remove this jig now. and I'm going to go ahead and cut the feet off at 5 inches. Okay, so I put my stop. Actually, it normally doesn't go this far. I turned it around so it will go this way. And so I should be able to get, I can't measure the 5 inches that way according to the tape measure, but I can make sure that it's well, at least going to be the same on both sides. So that looks like about 5 inches. It doesn't have to be exact. All right, so I'm going to cut this leg off. I've got 4 legs to cut. Only the 2 front are going to have angles on them. So I'll cut the other 4 legs. That should be 5 inches. There's one of the back legs. Second back leg. Now flip this around. There's all my cuts. A moment of truth. Let's see if I cut all this stuff right. So it's going to be something like this. Doesn't really matter which way the things are facing at this point. And then here. Looking good so far. This should be okay since they're all the same length. So I think that looks pretty good. Okay, I've sanded all these pieces down lightly. I didn't show that. It's not very exciting, but I used 220, just had all the edges, and now I'm going to measure to see where I want the pocket hole. Since this was 14 and a half, see, 14 and a half, so let's see here. So I'm going to put a pair of pocket holes, obviously, on the end. And see, this is facing down, so the pocket, so it's going to be up like this on the base, so the pocket holes need to go down this way. So I'm going to put some at about 4 and a half. So right in this area. And then 4 and a half over here. And then a pair here, pair here. So I think on the base, on the sides, that'll be fine. So again, pair here, 4 and a half. About in this area, 4 and a half. About in that area. I put a couple of pocket holes. Now I need to decide where they're going to be on the base. So here's the base down this way. And again, this was 45 and a half long. So I need to have about 11.5 inches apart. So we're going to start this one. Maybe I'll put one at 6. And 11.5. Six. 11.5. Another 11.5. So I put one there, 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 and there. I use a Craig pocket hole jig, and so the first thing I need to do is set. Comes this handy little tool that I can use to find out the width. It says the width falls into the 3/4 range. You can't, I can't get it on the camera. Anyway, trust me, it's a 3/4 range. And then what you do is you take this same little tool, and you loosen this collar right here, and inside there are markings. It's kind of hard, there you go. It's kind of hard to see, but there's measurement markings inside here. And you put the collar, in this case 3/4, on that marking. It's a little round circle with the marking inside of it. So you line the circle on the collar, the circle on the drill bit, and tighten it up. And that's where you want your stop to be. Now, for the actual pocket holes themselves, this is 2 3/8 to 3.5 inch. So I'm going to use a center mark B, which is on here, and it's also hard to tell. Let me see if I can get this camera down a little bit. Center mark B is right here, and then I would put that in the middle of the board, and then I'm going to drill 1 and 3 for the pocket holes. So I'm going to get this set up because it's got a dust extractor on it. So I'm going to get that hose on here, then we'll come back and we'll drill some holes.
Once you know where you're going to drill the holes, the drilling part is really straightforward. You're going to drill using the holes according to the instructions and thickness of the board, and you're simply just going to drill down until the collar hits, and then you're going to continue that for each of the pair of pocket holes on the board. It's that simple.
Okay, getting ready to drive the first pocket screws here. So you need to clamp this down first. Well, I think I need to. All right.
Once you have pieces clamped down, drilling the pocket holes is fairly straightforward. I really needed a clamp on the long piece as well as the foot. You saw it kind of raised up a little bit, and that actually caused me to have to reset one of the pocket hole screws because I didn't like the way it was setting. So I really needed to have another clamp on this or another set of hands. But basically, if you can get it all clamped down and held together, then just drilling the pocket holes, just screwing the screws in the pocket holes is fairly straightforward.
One thing that will become very obvious once you prime a piece of furniture, especially if it's been stained, is the seams between wood. You don't really notice it that much when it's stained, but when you want to paint it, personally, I think they should be filled. So, because I just don't think it looks right because sometimes you get, paint in here and part of it looks filled and part of it doesn't. So I think the best thing is to caulk it, and that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm not going to bother videotaping that because it's nothing exciting there. Just bear that in mind as you're refinishing, that look at those seams, and they especially show up after priming. They just seem to pop out. And then caulk those because you'll get a nice finished job, finished surface in the end. One thing I also do, just to tidy it up a bit, is when I primed this, I used roller on these edges, and I got some paint in here, and it just, I know it doesn't show when the drawers are in, and they only show when you take the drawers out, but I just think it looks unprofessional. When I'm delivering this to a client, these drawers are going to be out, and they're going to see that. So I prefer to try to sand down my mess, and unless I plan on painting those edges, which I'm not in this case, I'm going to get rid of that paint and sand it down so it looks a little bit more of a professional job. Totally optional and up to you. It's just what I do. So I'm getting ready to do a test spray with my Wagner sprayer, and I'm spraying Sherwin-Williams Urethane trim enamel today. I've got this setting on a setting 7.5 at the moment. May have to go to 8, and I had, now I've forgotten, I think on this little dial right here, there's no way to mark it or anything, so I go 1, 2, 3, and I think that's where I want it. So we're going to do a test pattern, and we're going to see what this looks like. Let's make adjustments. I will say, it's a really good idea as you spray different manufactured products, take notes on what the settings are. That way you can go back, and it's always going to be a good starting point.
I did have to make a few adjustments to get the spray pattern that I wanted. The material flow wasn't set high enough, so I had to adjust that a little bit. But after a few adjustments, I'm ready to go, and now I'm going to go and paint the dresser.
Okay, I've got the first coat of white paint on this. I taped spraying that, but it didn't come out right. So I'm going to sand down lightly these drawers and the whole chest, and then we're going to put the second coat on.
I'm using a used 180 to 220 SurfPrep sanding pad. I keep these sanding pads after I've used them because they come in really handy for this kind of work. They're not the grit that they were originally, so they're a little softer. So they make nice pads to sand between coats of paint. So I sand all the drawer fronts, then the sides and the top, and then we'll be ready to spray another coat. A final coat of white paint onto the dresser. So not much exciting here. Just spread it on about 8 to 10 inches away from the top, and I can't say enough about this Wagner sprayer. I used to use a Graco, but this sprayer is turned out to be so easy to use, and I shouldn't say never, but I very seldom have any runs, drips, or bad spots. It's just, at least for what I do on furniture refinishing, this is a great little sprayer. Down in here, the drawers covered that up. I got some on the sides right there. So I have to go over it all and touch that up. And also some of these two bottom drawers, I couldn't get the sprayer down low enough. So there's a little bit of a touch up on the very bottom of the drawer that I have to do. And then we'll let that dry, and then we'll be ready for top coat. Now that I have all my touch-up done, it's time to start spraying the first of 3 coats of a polyurethane. I'm using a Minwax latex-based polyurethane, and it is in a satin finish. So I'm going to spray 3 coats. I happen to have the sprayer set at a 2.5, and the little flow control button, I turned it 5 times, and that seemed to be a pretty good spray pattern. So we'll get this sprayed. Takes a couple hours between coats, and we'll get 3 coats on here. So now I'm in the home stretch. I've applied 3 coats of polyurethane to the dresser. Everything is done. The last step is to basically mount the base on the dresser, put all the drawers back in, and we'll be done. So I need to measure to make sure exactly where to place this on the base of the dresser, and so once I get this all measured, and then I'm going to go ahead and drill in the pocket screws, and then we'll turn this back over, put the drawers in, and we'll be done. So here's the final product ready for staging. I really liked how this base turned out, and it's just turned out beautiful. Of course, I'm biased, but now all that's left is for staging and put it up for sale, and hopefully this is going to sell pretty soon. Well, thank you for watching the video. I hope you have found it educational and have learned some things that you can use in your furniture makeovers. So if you have, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next furniture refinishing project from the next season.